volunteering your time on Saturday. We really, really will appreciate it. My name is Erin Russell. I'm the Special Projects Manager here at Beacon Law. And this will not be a long training. You know, it's good to know what to expect when you show up, especially, you know, something that maybe you've never done before. So this is just kind of going to go through the flow of the event, and the handout or the packet that you have is most of this is going to be online, but this is going to be all the steps for the different stations that we're going to be doing. Just history of Make It Right. This is actually the 8th one. They started in June of 2016, and they have greatly evolved over time. But in the past 7 events, we have screened a little over 1,350 people. That resulted in 3,100 matters for our office to handle. And when you see its cost savings to clients is right about $1 million. What that means is what we calculate is any fines or fees that we save them. So ID restoration, clearing, driver's license issues used to be a part of this event. It's not going to be this one. This one is strictly going to deal with criminal history. But if we were able to get tickets waived, if we were to get filing fees waived, which is going to be what the savings will be to these clients, just that's about what we have saved clients for these events. In the last 2 events, we started tracking people who walked away with a completely clear criminal history, and we have about 75 people that without this program would not have a clear criminal history. So that part is just kind of cool. The flow of the event, the way that it works is there's the DA zone. They are clearing people who have open Class C warrants, not traffic related, but there's a whole list of things that they count for that. And so they'll go in, they'll register. The DA's office will see if they have something that qualifies for that part of the program. And if they do, then they'll get that information. They'll go watch a video, do a class, do something very short. They'll get that off of, they'll be able to clear up those cases. There's also an employer resource fair, so there are second chance friendly employers that will be there, and there's a whole section of people, employers that'll have tables. And then there's the legal resources, which is us. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be screening people for eligible criminal history that they can have removed from their record. That goes through 2 different processes. So kind of the flow of our station is there's 3 different stations. We're going to screen them for eligible criminal history. If there's something that we're able to do, then they'll go through our intake process to get the rest of the information we need. And then at the end, they'll check out where they'll sign the documents that we need them to sign. And then they're free to go. We can continue with the work on the back end. And theoretically, we don't actually need to see them again. They've signed everything that they need to sign, and we can process it back here at the office without them having to have each person come back in for appointments. So at the criminal history screening, so we are only screening for Harris County. There is a question about if they have criminal history either outside Harris County or outside of Texas. Those are 2 pieces of information that are very important because that can speak to somebody's eligibility to have something sealed, but we are not able to represent on matters that are outside of Harris County at this time. The 2 ways that you get something cleared off your record is through either expunction or non-disclosure. This is all going to be done through the Harris County District Clerk site. You do need to have a login in order to search somebody's criminal records. You don't have to be an attorney. It is open to the public, but they want to know who's looking at the records. And so just sometime before Saturday, if you don't already have one, if you could go to the Harris County District Clerk's website, just Google Harris County District Clerk, and there's where it says Welcome Erin Russell, there will be an option to either log in or create an account. You can all you need is an email address. They want your name. If you're an attorney, they'll ask for your bar number. If you're not, it doesn't matter. It's fine. And so you can create an account so you can search somebody's records. So expunction is the first way that people can have things cleared from their record, and that is for cases that have been dismissed, they were found not guilty, or it was no billed by a grand jury. We are taking a very broad approach to this event because the DA is hoping for 2,000 people to come through this event. We're going to be quite busy. But we don't expect our volunteers to become instant experts. We just want to do as much as we can for the people that we can serve. And so we are going to be looking at a much broader view of what could potentially be eligible, so that we may get some people that we tell them something might be eligible, and then looking back on it, we may have to get back to them and say it's not or not yet. Because what we really don't want to happen is we don't want to send somebody away telling them nothing's eligible when in fact something is. So I'm going to go through this about what we're looking for, but just know that everything that we tell the people at this event is this is a potentially eligible thing. We're not guaranteeing anything today. Oh, sorry. So expunction is things that have been dismissed, found not guilty, or no billed by a grand jury. These are things that are eligible to be removed from your record as if they never happened. Basically, they take everything from the arrest all the way through the case, they ball it up, and they hit the delete button. A non-disclosure is a little bit different. A non-disclosure is things that it's sealed from public view. So these are cases that either you got deferred adjudication and you successfully completed that. Deferred adjudication is a special type of probation, but it's not straight probation. There are rules about things like if it's your first misdemeanor, even if it's a conviction, then it can now be sealed from your record. There are things involving prostitution if it has to do with human trafficking. There's a lot of caveats to non-disclosure. What I say by sealed from public record is that things like jobs or housing or things like that, it will not come up on their background searches. If you're going to get some kind of state licensure, if you're going through immigration, if you're going to court, law enforcement, they would still be able to see it, but it would say that it was sealed. And so there are some times where you have to disclose things, but just a normal general background check for employment or housing purposes, these things would no longer show up. So what we're looking for on Saturday is we want to see, do they have anything that was dismissed? Now, dismissals will usually show up in the case status right here. It'll say dismissed. Those are pretty easy to spot. It's a little different when you're looking for deferred adjudication because you actually have to open. It'll just say that it was disposed, but you're going to look at the case documents and see was there deferred adjudication granted. So we're looking for dismissals. We're looking for cases that were granted deferred adjudication. We're looking for anything that was no billed by a grand jury. Those will either show where it said dismissed or disposed. It'll either say no bill, or within the document, when you open up the case, it'll say no bill. Acquittals, it'll either say acquittal or it'll say found not guilty. Those are the things that, those are the big things that we're looking for. We're also looking for any case that involves prostitution. So this last legislative session, they expanded prostitution cases that are eligible to be sealed from their record, and it speaks to human trafficking. These are conversations that we want to have one-on-one with the client It's not really a conversation that we want to have with somebody at the George R. Brown. And so that's why we want to flag those as potentially eligible, because that will speak to, that will show us that that's a conversation we need to have one-on-one with the person and the attorney here at Beacon Law. The other thing that we're looking for is 3 or fewer misdemeanor convictions excluding these things above. So if they have 2 things that have been dismissed and 1 conviction or 2 convictions that are misdemeanors, it's still possible that we can get their first misdemeanor sealed. It really just depends on the circumstances. If they, for example, have the first thing that they ever got was a misdemeanor conviction, it was for theft. Then they also have a misdemeanor conviction for driving without a license. Who really cares about the fact that they drove without a license? But a lot of people are going to care that they have that theft conviction. The law allows for your first misdemeanor conviction to be sealed, but it really plays to the circumstances, because non-disclosures are up to the judge's discretion. They are not a mandatory thing. And so we want to look at people who that may play a thing. If they have 3 thefts, there's nothing we can do because a judge isn't going to seal that. But if they have 1 thing, if their first thing is impactful and the other things don't really matter so much, then that's still something that we want to look at. Just know that everybody that we flag as potentially eligible will get all that data after the event, and the attorneys at Beacon Law will verify and make sure that their cases are eligible before we start any work. You had a question?
Yeah, what if the legal conviction came before?
So it does matter the order, but for these purposes, we just want to look at that record again. And so just mark that as its potential, So this document right here shows waiting periods for eligibility for non-disclosure. There's a list, and you'll have this document that day. It's not in your packet. I forgot it. I apologize. So if you're convicted of anything on this ineligible list, and I know it's hard to read right now, but it's mostly offenses that are sexual in nature, involving family violence, and something that involves a child. Those are most of them. Murder, capital murder, those types of things. If you have a conviction for any of those things, you can never have anything sealed from your record, no matter what it is. You can still have things expunged, so the dismissals, the acquittals, those can still come off, but you then are knocked out of permanent ineligibility from sealing something from your record. If it's a case involved in one of these areas, then there's a 2-year waiting period after your deferred period. And if you get any convictions or deferreds within that 2 years, then it's no longer eligible. And if it's not listed here, then there's no waiting period. We're really just looking for, do they exist? But just so you're aware of what these things mean. So the first thing that's going to happen, when the person's waiting in line, they're going to get a third of this piece of paper. This just shows them the order of events for the screening process. The people who are working at the screening part, they're going to be the ones screening their criminal record, and they're going to be doing an online form that is this criminal history search. So this is the information that you're going to be getting and inputting. We have a ticket system, so everybody's going to have a number, and that's how we keep track of people, just because there can be similar, same names and things like that. So we want a unique identifier, and we found this to be the easiest one. So you're going to get just some basic information from the person if you're doing the screening: name, address, phone number, email, date of birth, their ticket number. When you search somebody's record, It shows their SPIN. This is a Harris County identification number. I actually don't know what SPN stands for, but SPIN is unique to Harris County, and it'll show a number right here. We do want to collect that number because they're before alias purposes. Somebody's criminal history has history outside of Harris County, history under different names. It all plays a part in what is eligible to be sealed and what is not. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at somebody's full record. And if we look up name and date of birth, but they used a different name, we might not get a complete picture of them. So we do want to collect their SPIN and also ask them, have they ever been arrested using a different name? A maiden name, a name they made up on the spot, their brother, anything. And what those names are for the same reason. We're going to find it, so them hiding it isn't really a good thing. And the people who come to these events, I don't think they're going to, but it just makes it a lot easier for us. Then the next two questions are similar, but they have to do with Harris County and Texas. Have you ever been arrested outside of Harris County, outside of Texas? This does not include traffic tickets. If you get arrested on a traffic stop, that's not what we're looking for. It's an actual criminal case that would cause an arrest, because that does play a part in eligibility, and we just need to know where to look for records. We can look at all of Texas, but it costs per search, and so we don't do that for everybody unless we know there's a reason to. And then the next question is what you'll check after you look at their record, and it's either do they have something potentially eligible or not. You don't have to list out what the offenses are. We don't need any of that information. We just need to know, should we look at this person again, or are we sending them on their way? The last question is, with their potential, do they have the potential to have a clear record? Is that something the district attorney really wants us to be tracking? Just it's impactful numbers. So many people now don't have a criminal record, and they couldn't say that before. Does anybody have any questions over that part? Yes.
The only thing left on their record would be like the driving without a license. Would that be considered clear?
No, it's if we can get rid of everything. Even if it's something small that doesn't really matter, if we can't get rid of it, they don't have a clear record. If at the end of that, if you're doing the searches and there isn't anything that we can do, nothing that they have is eligible, then they're going to get that station with these forms, and this is just, I'm really sorry, we can't help you. We used to tell people, sorry, this isn't eligible. Now we say this isn't eligible right now, because there have been so many changes in the recent legislative sessions that things are eligible that we never thought would be. And so now we never tell somebody never, we just say not right now. We do let them know that the legislature is going to meet again next spring, and they may pass laws that could affect them. And so if they want us to rerun their record next summer, give our office a call. Also at the bottom, we just have some Know Your Rights, just good information for them to have when they're trying to navigate the housing market, the job market with a criminal record. And so that's just informational purposes. If there is potentially something that we can do, the next station that they're going to go to is intake. So this is where we gather the rest of their information in order to complete the pleadings. So that is this next section packet right here. The first part just goes through some demographic information that we collect for all of our clients, and that's just for reporting purposes. Then we get into their financial information. So this is very important because this speaks to whether or not they qualify to have the filing fee waived in order for us to do this work. The filing fee for each an expunction and a non-disclosure is about $300. So if If we don't have correct information, then we're going to require them to pay that. Everybody that comes to this event that has something eligible, our services are free. We do not charge attorneys fees for anything that we do. Their income information is strictly used to see if they qualify to have their filing fees waived. And so we ask, do they have anybody living with them that depend on them for financial support? They have to be living with them. If they're sending money to, a friend or relative somewhere else, that's an expense that they have, but that person does not qualify as a dependent of theirs. We want to know their household size because that matters. I'll explain why in a second. I put on there number of people because sometimes we ask for household size and people say 1 bedroom, 1 bath. Or they'll say 152 because they're living in a residential treatment program and that's how many people live in the facility. We just want to know about their individual situation. If they do have, if they say yes under dependents, then it will pop up this list the names, ages, and relationships to everybody that you support. If you say no, that box will get skipped. Then it goes to income. So we want to know their work wages, their employment status. If they are employed, we want to know where they're working and what their position is. If they're not employed or they're disabled, how long have they been unemployed? We need the entire household's income, not just the single person. And so we have another box for spouse or other contributors' work wages. If they're married and their spouse is working, we need that person's income. If they're married and also they have an adult child living with them that they support, but that person is working, we need the entire household's income, and it plays to their entire household size as to whether or not they're going to qualify. Do they get unemployment benefits? Do they get food stamps or SNAP benefits? Do they qualify for public housing? Do they have a voucher? Do they receive child support or spousal support? If they pay child support, that goes somewhere else. Do they get Social Security disability, VA disability, a retirement, a pension? The next three questions ask about assets that they own. In order to own an asset, it has to be fully yours. So that's why we ask questions in the manner that we do. So do they own a house? Yes, I do, but I pay a mortgage. Well, then it's not yours, it's the bank's. So we're only interested in ones that it is fully theirs. So if they own a house and they don't have a mortgage, then it'll ask what the value of their home is. If they either say no or that they do have a mortgage, it'll skip the value question. Same with vehicles. If they have a car and it's paid off, then we need to know the value of the cars, the year, make, model. All these questions go into our affidavit of inability to pay costs. And so these are questions that we don't have to follow up and ask them later. Do they have checkings or savings accounts? If they do, then what's the current balance of their accounts? These questions don't really make or break whether or not they qualify. It's their income that does. But this is all information that we have to put in that affidavit to the court. And so that's why that information is important. The next section goes through their expenses. What do they pay for a mortgage or rent? If they are not providing their own residence, if they're living with friends, if they're at a shelter, if they're couch surfing, if they're living with family, if they are not in fully control of their own their own housing situation, we would like to know where they're staying, what their situation is. Utilities, food, child care or child support that they pay, that's where that part would go. Car payment, auto insurance, any transportation costs, gas, bus fare, tolls, Uber. That's something that we have recently realized is a big expense. Pay a lot for Uber. Do they pay attorney's fees to anybody else? Life insurance, health insurance premiums, do they pay out of pocket? If they have the gold card or something like that they are not paying for out of pocket, we don't necessarily need to know that. This is just, do they pay for some kind of other insurance premiums? Medical expenses, so this is things that they pay out of pocket every month. So again, if they have Gold Card or something else that covers their expenses, then we don't need to know that information. But do they have prescriptions that they pay for every month? Things like that. Do they have clothing, laundry expenses? Do they go to the laundromat? Things like that. Any other expenses that we haven't already covered is the other miscellaneous. And then there's a box for information if they want to provide any additional information regarding their financial situation. Do they have a whole lot of credit card debt? Do they have a whole lot of medical debt? Do they have $100,000 in student loans? I mean, just did they recently get laid off and so that's why they're in this situation? Just anything else that they would like to provide to explain their situation, we can put that information there. The last part of this is an authorization for release of information. If there's anybody that they would like us to be able to talk to about their case, should we not be able to get a hold of them, then they would give us their information here. They can revoke that at any point in time just by letting us know. But if they don't list anybody here, then if their spouse calls, their mom calls, their neighbor calls, we can't even tell them if they're our client. And so if they want us to be able to talk to anybody else, then that's a good idea. That's especially helpful in cases where they maybe don't have great contact information, their phone is in and out, or they don't have an email that they check very regularly. Those are usually the situations that occurs. But it's not required, it's just an option that they have. So once they are finished with the intake application, then they're going to go to checkout. It's the last part of the process. Okay, so there's this form that got kind of shoved in the middle there. When they this is going to follow them through the whole process. So at the screener table, the screener is the initial where they're doing their criminal history. They're going to write down the ticket number and the person's name. When they go from screening to intake, the client will bring this, and then the person at intake is going to write down the household size and the total wages that they have reported. We don't need any of the other income categories on this, just wages. So theirs and their spouse or other contributor. And what this is going to do is, in conjunction with this grid right here, is going to determine whether or not they qualify for a fee waiver. So in Harris County, you can get a fee waiver if you are at 200% or below the federal poverty guideline. So this is the 2020 policy that just came out a few weeks ago. So for a household size of 1, you can make $2,126 and still qualify to have your fees waived. If you're above that, then we can still help you, but you're going to have to pay the filing fees. And so this is where household size is very important, because as you can see, the bigger your house, the more money that you can bring in. It certainly doesn't keep up with how much it costs to have family members, but that's that. So the people at checkout are going to have this information, and so they'll be able to tell the person, based on the income and household size that you reported, you are likely or not able to get your filing fee waived. If they are not able to get it waived and they don't want to continue, they don't have to. They're welcome to leave. They don't have to sign anything else. If they do want us to help them, then there's a packet that we're gonna have them sign. This is all done electronically. So we will have stations set up for checkout. They have electronic pens, like when you go to the grocery store and all those other things. And this is going to be a PDF document. So this is our agreement for legal services. And basically what it says is that we are going to represent them, and you'll type in their name, it's a field, with appropriate representation for expunction and or non-disclosure of Harris County criminal history identified as eligible with the Make It Right event. It's as holistic as we could make it, since we don't know the exact cause numbers yet. And the process is going to be that after the event, their eligibility will be verified by a Beacon Law attorney, and within 60 days, they will be informed their final eligibility. They will not be charged any attorney's fees. If we can't get filing fees waived, we will let them know we will not incur any fees without their permission. It reiterates the importance of staying in contact or updating their contact information. This lists ways that we can terminate this agreement if they're not truthful, if they don't stay in contact, if they don't show up for hearings, they hire another attorney, we can't still help them. It has the place to file agreements with the state bar that's required to be there, and they will sign where it says client signature, and then you, as the person completing it, will just type your name where it says completed by, just so that we know who it was that did it. The second page is, this is the signature page for the affidavit of inability to pay. So all the answers that they gave us in the intake process regarding their finances, that all feeds to the actual affidavit that we use. It just puts the numbers straight in. And so this is just them saying that they verify that everything that they told us in intake is true and correct to the best of their knowledge. I am the notary, and so nobody has to worry about that. I notarize these. The last page in this packet is the verification for expunction. So if you qualify to have something expunged from your record, part of that is you have to sign a verification that basically says, yep, I really do want this gone from my record. Why that is a requirement, we have no idea, but it is. And so that we don't have to have them come back and sign it later, they sign it at the event that yes, they actually do want an expunction should it be eligible. From there, they're done, and they're going to get this last page, which is our checkout letter that just explains what they can expect, the process going forward, our contact information, if they have questions before they hear from us, if their contact information changes, and then they're ready to go. Our goal is that from the time somebody comes to, starts with a screener, all the way through the process, shouldn't be more than 20 minutes. Some will be less, some will be more, just dependent on the length of their record or questions that they have or things like that. But that's kind of the average amount of time that it should take one person to come through the event. It's set up in the 3 stations, so there's going to be people that are doing screening, then there will be people doing intake, and then there will be people doing checkout. It's not one person that goes through the whole process. Does anybody have any questions?
Are we going to be assigned to any one of those 3 tables?
If you have a preference, then you're welcome to let us know that morning, and we'll put you there. If you don't have a preference, then we'll put you probably where we have the fewest people. We are limited at checkout to 10 stations because that's the number of pens I have, because they're expensive. And there is specific software that you have to use, and so those are our computers that we use for that. Also, I don't really want a volunteer accidentally walking away with 1/10 of our agreements, and I have no way of knowing who it was. Other than that, and you also don't have to stay at the station that you start in. If you start screening and then you're like, you know what, I'm really not comfortable doing this, can I move to intake? We're totally fine with that. If you want to be like, you know what, I've been doing intake, I'd really like to try my hand at screening, we are totally fine with that. I will be at the event. I'm not at a station. I'm just kind of everywhere. Our whole staff will be there. Some will be doing screenings. Some will just be around for assistance if you have questions. Parking is free for our volunteers. I'm still waiting for the actual information from the DA's office. I should have that tomorrow or Wednesday. And when I do, then I will email that out to everybody as far as like where to park, all of that information. We are going to be on the 3rd floor, and our room is room 320. It's right in the middle. If you're in the GRB, it's right in the middle on the 3rd floor, and there's a big ballroom, and ours is the room on the right. There will be breakfast served for volunteers, snacks throughout the day. They will feed you lunch. I don't know what it will be. You also can bring whatever you want with you if you have specific snacks, drinks that you like. Everybody needs to bring a laptop. Don't forget your charger. Am I forgetting? Yes.
What do we wear? Like, is it
Business casual.
business casual?
Yeah. And comfortable shoes. It's a long day. And so business casual is fine, but just make sure that you wear comfortable shoes.
Are we gonna have a place to sit, or are we standing?
Oh no, you'll be sitting, but it's big, and you may be up and down, and I always feel bad for the girls that come in really high heels. I'm like, ooh, that's just a me thing. If you really like really high heels, go for it. But yeah, business casual is fine.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Anybody park in the garage, but I'm in the valet parking?
Oh yeah,
I couldn't find it.
Is it garage?
across the street.
Across the street attached to the church.
If you ever come back here again, there's a garage. So, I don't know what shifts you signed up to, if you're all day or just morning or just afternoon. If you're coming in the morning, if you could please be there no later than 8:30. If you're only able to be there for the afternoon, this is at George R. Brown. This will all be in the email that I send with parking instructions, but just so you know. If you're only able to come for the afternoon, if you could be there by 11:30, that would be wonderful. So there are going to be some people that can only stay for one shift or another, and so we want to make sure that there's some overlap for can't think of the word right now. Yeah. Yes.
I don't think I'm actually signed up for a shift. I just
Okay.
sent an email saying I'm interested in doing this, and I don't remember.
Then if you're not signed up for a shift, we assume you're going to be there all day. The event is from 9 to 3. And like I said, the DA is hoping for 2,000 people. I'm not scared at all. No, it's going to be, I think it's going to be really good. We've got a really good group of volunteers that are going to help us out. We've got a really great staff. Really, really appreciate all of y'all's help. So glad that you're here. Anybody else have any questions? If you think of anything between now and then, if you've been emailing with us, then you probably have Ayana's information. This is Ayana Westbrooks. She's our pro bono coordinator. If you have been sent here by somebody else, let me get you my card before you leave. Or Ayana, if you could go grab some cards, just so that people have our contact information just in case. And we really appreciate it, and we'll see you on Saturday.
Did everybody